This vehicle is one of the only decent vehicles that I've played so far within the Japanese heavy tech tree, the OHO, and by decent I mean actually somewhat usable. The tier 7 Oni, featuring basically no armor and a pretty lackluster main armament, makes it just so much better when you get the OHO, because the armor model of this tank actually somewhat works alongside having a pretty solid main armament when you're fully upgraded, which is why I somewhat enjoyed playing the OHO to some degree more than the rest of the Japanese heavy line. So with that in mind, let's have a look at exactly what this tank can do and how you can set up a vehicle like this for somewhat of a decent amount of success when you do decide to play it. So let's have a look at how we've set up the vehicle. So key number one when playing any of these Japanese heavies is to have vertical stabilizers. It is so important because the accuracy of these tanks is not particularly great, and when you are having basically a main armament that is either a 15cm howitzer, which with awful accuracy and dispersion, or a 10cm with similarly pretty bad accuracy and dispersion, you want to make sure that you are as accurate as possible. So a gun stabilizer is one of the most important things that you can use on a Japanese heavy in my experience of playing them. We're also running with advanced loader for increased reload, because the damage per minute of these vehicles, as you can probably expect, is pretty okay. However, the problem with these tanks is that they are quite high alpha, which means that the reloads are quite long, and because they're quite inflexible with the amount of gun depression that they get, since you get less gun depression over the front of the vehicle because of these weird droids that they have on the front, which actually act as a secondary gun type, at least one of them does. And so you have this situation where, yeah, you have a pretty decent amount of damage that you can deal with a fairly reliable gun when you do have vertical stabilizers, and of course when you've got all of the perks and equipment on that you need. So with all of that being said, yeah, the DPM is okay, but the problem is when you combine that with the inflexibility, where you can't actually aim and where you can't actually get the 10 degrees of gun depression that you do have on this vehicle, which is only available over the side of the tank, means that you have to expose the side of your vehicle to be able to shoot someone. So think of it almost like a Centurion AVRE if you've ever played one. That's kind of how these tanks roll, and although they don't have the crazy alpha damage that you will see with a Centurion AVRE, they do have a bit of a punch that can make them work. However, you're going to find yourself in a bit of a sticky situation in higher tier matchups where your flat armor just doesn't hold up and people pen you every single time, along with the fact that you can somewhat able to pen people with 215 pen and 253 premium, but when you are coming up against E100s, IS4s, IS7s, that sort of thing, you can struggle against them even with 253 millimeters of penetration with your premium rounds. Of course, it does have HE, but with the small gun, it only has 53 pen. So yeah, you're not really going to be firing very much HE, and in fact, only at the super lightly armored vehicles, probably at tier 7 and below. With that being said, we're running it with full premium consumable so that we can actually have a decent game, hopefully, because at the end of the day, this tank was a bit of a pain to grind through, and it took us a long time on stream to get towards the Type 4, but it is over, and almost one of the tank's lines that I've dreaded doing from the very beginning of when it actually first came out. And yeah, this tank definitely feels a little bit slow with the 25 kilometers an hour top speed, which is one of the reasons I was not particularly too happy about having to play it to complete all of the tech trees in World War II. But obviously, if you've played this tank, you've played it extensively, and you really are amazing at playing the Japanese heavy tanks, and let people know in the comment section down below. Give them some tips, as I am not the be all and end all, especially when it comes to super heavy vehicles. So take everything that I'm saying with a pinch of salt, and I'm sure there are some very, very, very skilled players who can make these sorts of things work and are more accustomed to the heavy tank play style, as I typically will play faster heavy tanks and mediums with a bit more speed, and of course light tanks with tank destroyers in there as well, rather than the super heavy / slow heavy tanks. So with that being said, the Oh-Ho, let's see how we actually did in one of the best matches that we had in this tank, and why I finally kind of understand why people might like these vehicles in the game. Now then, the first game that we have, and the only game actually, is on Fjords. I want to keep these reviews quite short and straight to the point so you guys know exactly what these tanks are all about, and we're not fluffing up the videos to make them longer than they need to be, just so that you guys have the most information that you can. So, in this game, we're going to find ourselves in a variety of different situations, both good, bad, and also ugly at the same time. So, let's make sure that we can make the most of our game so that we can, you know, try and get as much damage or try and push ourselves to be able to win or carry the game if we possibly can. So, in a tank like this, you are limited. You cannot redeploy. Once you've committed to an area of the map, and I mean about half of the map, you typically won't have time to turn around and go to the other side of the map. So if you have made your way to one part of the map, you're probably going to have to commit there and do something in that region to be able to win the game for your team. If you don't, or you don't move quick enough, you'll find yourself being caught out, and that happens almost every single time. If you make a misplay and you go to a flank and maybe it's only you on that flank and you find multiple opponents, yeah, you ain't getting away, not with the 25 kilometers an hour top speed. With a pretty much average top speed of about 20 kilometers an hour, you very rarely get up to 25 consistently. With this vehicle, you can see here we're at about 22, maybe getting up to 25 as we get on the very flat ground, but as soon as you find an incline, it's 20 or below. So yeah, very, very slow, very sluggish, and you really have to try and push as hard as you can in certain areas to secure the win or go for that win, and also the damage, because getting damage in these tanks is actually quite difficult, and that is primarily because of the fact that you're slow. You don't have the luxury of, oh, I need to go over to this next area to get a bit more damage in the game. You need to make sure that you are getting damage throughout the game, otherwise you won't be able to make it up by redeploying and farming people in the mid and late stage of the game. You need to be there at the beginning. So yeah, this game, there's no one around me. Yay, brilliant. A great start to the early game for me in this one, with 0 damage on the clock after 2.5 minutes. So a great movement by me, taking 2.5 minutes to go absolutely nowhere with absolutely no damage, and gonna find ourselves in a situation where we're already down by 2 vehicles. But can we pull it out of the bag? Can we actually win this game? Or is it going to be another one of those where, yeah, you just end up getting caught out and it's all game over? But you can see here we are getting popped in the backside by the Churchill 7, so we want to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So what do? Well, rather than going for him, we need to get rid of the tier 8s. The tier 8s are the pain in the backside right now, including this Orochi, which is the premium version of basically me. So if we can get rid of him, that'd be nice, and then he can go and we can focus on the TD that's behind him, which is, I believe, the T28 prototype, or not the prototype, but the other vehicle. Oh no, it is the TS5. I knew that, definitely knew that. I swear, we're professional here on this channel. But there, the TS5, we've put one into the track to try and track him. We put one into the back of him. Unfortunately, no one else went to track him, which means we are going to have to deal with the guys over on this side. Brilliant, we only tracked the AMX-12T, which is fantastic. We did finally put one into him, but now we've got to deal with the Churchill 7, who hopefully we can quite easily. Not particularly the hardest tank to pen, as long as you're aiming at the right places. The side scrape with that vehicle, you can't do it. We put one into the AMX-12T, which of course it would bounce, right? that is how World of Tanks works, and unfortunately for us, we can't quite turn it around enough to get that easy shot of damage. So yeah, not ideal. Can we get one on the Churchill? We put one into him, and of course it tracks him. Oh, it's like it's a nightmare situation right now. All we need to do is just pen people, and oh, for God's sake, we've low-rolled him as well to put him on literally no health. Fantastic. That's exactly what I wanted. The artillery on their team, what on earth are you doing? Why have you come out of your base? That's not allowed. And we put one into him, hopefully, in a second. But we've got to hunt him down, get rid of him, because he's going to be a nightmare if he comes up from behind me and tries to use the speed. We try and go for a quick one on the AMX-12T, but that doesn't happen. Oh, it's getting worse and worse, I swear. So we're 2.2k on the clock so far, and with 400 assists, it's okay. It's an okay game. I wouldn't be too dissatisfied with it. It's quite a difficult tank to make work, and often you can find yourself in some horrible spots. But we do manage to actually hit this little pesky 12T who's been avoiding us for basically the whole of this midsection of the game. But of course, the enemy team, as they always do, have tried to cap the base. Yes, the base cappers in their element right now. But we could still potentially win this if we can manage to get rid of this artillery piece, who's going to be a bit of a nightmare. It's the equalizer. We want to help out the tank destroyer on our team by coming up from behind him and getting one into him. We swap to the little round, and I don't know where that one went, but okay. Swap back to the main armament in a second, hopefully. But we do have two tanks behind us. It is a TD, and it's also a medium. Depending on what medium tank it is, we may be able to win this. So if it's a tier 8 medium, it's probably unlikely we're going to get away with it. And oh, it is a tier 8 medium. And oh, for God's sake, we actually ended up bouncing it. Oh, come on. What is this? And of course, trying to throw the game as hard as I possibly can, apparently. But the Hellcat out in the open, can we get one onto him? Yes, we can. He bounces off of us. We swap to the small gun. We put one into him, two into him. Can we get a third one, or are we going to swap back to the normal round? We actually swap back to the normal round and finish him off for the third enemy of this game. But the CS is coming round knowing that we fired, but we get one more into him, leaving it in a 2 versus 2 and an artillery on their team. So a 2 versus 3 in total. Yeah, a pretty solid game for the OHO, 3.8k damage with 397 assistance. But can our team secure the victory? I guess I actually wanted to showcase this last bit because you're seeing another weird vehicle that you're probably not used to seeing. So I thought I could add this one in there as well, so you guys could get a glimpse of a pretty rare but mercenary vehicle nonetheless, the Spyglass. I'd be interested to see whether or not you enjoyed the OHO. I certainly feel like it's the best of the line so far that I've played with my limited kind of knowledge of the Japanese heavies. I've played the ONI, the OI, the OI Experimental, and of course played the OHO, and it certainly feels like the one that actually gets at least a little bit of armor to try and get the game working properly. So yeah, now we're in a situation where we've got a light tank and a tank destroyer going after the Kanonen Jagdpanzer 105. But the problem with the Spyglass, if you don't already know or haven't played this vehicle, is that it is prone to running out of ammunition. Yeah, the Spyglass has very limited rounds, which I always say within World of Tanks should never, ever, ever be a limiting factor for a tank. It is infuriating that Wargaming do actually do this, but yeah, he's ran out of rounds in this game, which means there's only one option for him, even though he would have been able to finish off the Kanonen, is to ram him for the kind of, I guess, kamikaze, but also a reverse kamikaze back on him to finish himself out. An eye for an eye, as they say. And yeah, he had a fantastic game. Metalheads do 5 kills, 300,466 damage, 1400 base XP, and us on 3.8k damage with 1039 XP. Two of the tanks that you've probably not really seen on this channel, and maybe I'll even show you the Spyglass in detail and show you what it's all about and why he ran out of ammo and all of that in the next videos that we have coming up on the channel. But other than that, that is literally the Oh-Ho, the one tank that I actually didn't mind, considering all of the other heavies that we've played so far. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and if you have and you want to support me just by kind of something simple, is just use that like button, as it massively helps me out. But other than that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day and you join me in one of these videos on screen right now, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.